Hello. In this video we're going to look at some of the religious writings from cultures that we believe evolved from the Proto-Indo-Europeans to see if they can offer any evidence to support the theory of religions and cultures coming from a single source. So welcome to Finding the Creation Myth Part 2 and welcome to Kleckenfeld. In my previous video I discussed the overall genealogy of religion that evolved from the Proto-Indo-Europeans, and that for those who are new to the channel it's probably worth watching that video before you watch this, and so if that does interest you I'll link it above and in the description below. But for those who have missed it I'll do a 30-second synopsis and that will go something like this: that we believe the source Proto-Indo-European religion creation myth, which is at least 6,000 years old, went like this.
In the beginning of the cosmos, two beings were created, Manus and Ymir, meaning man and twin, and also a giant cow on which they suckled. Manus wanted to stop wandering through the cosmos and to have a home, and so he sacrificed Ymir, and from his body created the sky god, the ocean god, and the earth. He travelled down to the earth and became a priest, teaching that through ritual sacrifice he would keep the world in order.
Now with this myth, amongst other myths, the Proto-Indo-European cultures and their religion spread from around the Black Sea and Turkey to the east and to the west. To the west, the regions of Germania and Scandinavia came to be, with those containing characters like Ymir and Odin, and the Roman creation myth of Romulus and Remus. And to the east, an Indo-Iranian myth developed before splitting into separate religions, and from each of these myths developed further, with the Jewish and Greek myths being influenced from the Iranian-based arm of the split, with their primordial being of Gaumart, and then the Indian Vedic version with their cosmic being of Purusa, and that influenced Chinese Taoism, which is like Taoism. Now from this genealogy I'll take three key books from some of those descendant religions of the Proto-Indo-Europeans to show proof that this genealogical view developed. Now the first book I'll start with is the Rig Veda, which is a collection of Indian Vedic Sanskrit hymns, and the part I'll read is a passage from Book 10, Hymn 90, verses 6 to 16, and I'm using my own translation based on Ralph Griffith's work. And in this text representing Vedic culture, the primordial being is named Purusa, just as a point of reference when you're listening to it, so you can understand what's being referred to.
Dias and Rhys were born from the grass grown with the holy water. Fat of Purusa's body was gathered up, forming the creatures of the air, and the animals both wild and tame. From that great general sacrifice, the Rig Veda and Samaveda hymns were born, and the Chandas were born from him, and the Vaya Veda was born from him. From it horses were born, from it all cattle with teeth on both jaws were born, from it cows were born, and from it the goats and the sheep were born. When they divided Purusa, how many portions did they make? What did they make from his mouth, his arms? What did they make from his thighs and feet? The Brahmanas was his mouth, of both his arms was the Vayana made. His thighs became the Vishas, from his feet the Shudras were produced. The moon was created from his mind, and from his eyes the sun was born. Indra and Agni from his mouth were born, and Vayu, the wind, from his breath. From his navel came the air between the heaven and the earth. The sky was fashioned from his head, earth from his feet, and from his ear the regions. Thus they formed the worlds. 7 enclosures had he, with 3 times 7 layers of fuel were prepared, when the gods offering sacrifice bound as their victim Purusa. Gods sacrificed the victim. These were the earliest holy meditations. The gods through this attained the height of heaven, where the Satyas, the gods of old, now dwell.
So in summary, Purusa is sacrificed and its body parts are used to make the earth, heaven and the moon, and animals and all men. And next we can look at the Iranian greater Buddhism, and use selections from that text as suggested by work from Professor Bruce Lincoln. And to add context, Gaumart was the primordial being of the Iranian mythology, and it goes like this.
Ahriman, the evil spirit, entered in the month of Flavratan on the day of Almazd at noon. The sky was afraid of him as a sheep of a wolf. He then came to the water arranged underneath this earth. He then pierced and entered the middle of this earth. Then he came to the tree, then to the ox and Gaumart. Then he came to the fire, so that, like a fly, he went to all creations. This, too, is said in the Avesta. When the soul-created ox passed away, it fell to the right hand, and when Gaumart passed away thereafter, he fell to the left hand. As regards the whereabouts of the 5 kinds of animals, it says in the scripture, when the soul-created ox passed away, 55 species of corn and 12 species of medicinal herbs grew up from there, where its semen fell. Having carried the semen of the ox up to the moon station, they purified it there and created out of it the domestic animals of many species. First 2 cattle, male and female, and then a pair of every species appeared in the heart of Iran within the earth. As it says, on account of the value of the ox, I produced it twice, once as the ox, and again as the beneficent animals of many species. When illness came to Gaumart, he fell on his left-hand side. There came into manifestation lead out of his head, tin out of his blood, silver out of his marrow, iron out of his feet, copper out of his bones, glass out of his fat, steel out of his arms, and gold out of life's departure, which, owing to its value, men now give along with life. When Gaumart ejaculated while passing away, they filtered the seed by means of the light of the sun. The fire, near the sun, guarded 2 parts of it, and Spendamart, the earth, accepted 1 part, and it remained within the earth for 40 years.
The text continues further after this, telling how 10 species of man were ultimately produced from the semen of Gaumart. But what was important was that the passages I've read clearly show his body being used for the creation of the earth. And finally, in the last of the 3 texts I want to talk about, we have the Beguiling of Gylfi, and that's from the Prose Edda. Here, this is an Old Norse story, and here the primordial being is Ymir, and the story is presented as a discussion between a king who uses the name Gangleri and the gods, referred to as the High Ones.
Then Gangleri said, where was Ymir's home, and what was it? The High One replied, as soon as the frost thawed, it became a thumla, and 4 rivers of milk ran from her udders, and she fed Ymir. Then Gangleri asked, how did the cow live? The High One answered, she licked the ice blocks, which was salty, and by the evening of the first day, a man's hair appeared from the ice block she licked. On the second day, a man's head, and on the third day, the whole of the man was there. He was called Buri. He was handsome and tall and strong. He had a son called Bor, who married a woman called Bestla, the daughter of the giant Bullthorn. They had 3 sons, the first Othin, the second Vili, the third Vi. And it is my belief that Othin, with his brothers, is the ruler of the heavens and the earth. We think that this is his title. It is a name given to the man we know to be the greatest and most famous, and you can take it that this is his title. Then Gangleri asked, how did they get on together? Was one group more powerful than the other? Then the High One answered, Bor's sons killed the giant Ymir, and when he fell, so much blood poured from his wounds that they drowned the whole tribe of frost ogres with it, except for one who escaped with his household. This one is known as Bergelmir. Then Gangleri said, what did the sons of Bor do next, since you believe they are gods? The High One said, there is a great deal to be told about this. They took Ymir and carried him into the middle of the Gunga Gap, and made the world from him. From his blood, the sea and the lakes. From his flesh, the earth. From his bones, the mountains. Rocks and pebbles they made from his teeth and jaws and those bones that were broken. Just as I said, from the blood which welled freely from his wounds they fashioned the ocean. When they put together the earth and girdled laying the ocean round about it, to cross it would strike most men as impossible. The third added, they also took his skull and made the sky from it, and it over the earth with its 4 sides.
From that passage, we see that Ymir's body has been used to create the earth, which means that there's a common thread, and quite a clear common thread, in that all 3 myths representing the Vedic, Persian and Old Norse cultures has a creation myth with a primordial being killed and dismembered. And from this body, the cosmos or earth and its creatures are created. And whilst there are differences in each account, these are evidently because cultural changes happen over time that have passed since the original myth was created. And as that myth spreads and new cultures develop, new technology and new needs and new stories, things such as sailing or farming, that religious myth changes. And religious myth changes rapidly throughout history. Within a generation, changes can occur, just like stories I've mentioned in previous videos. And this explains why there are such differences in the myths. But what are the key differences between those three texts I've just read? Well, the dismemberment was performed by gods in two of the accounts, but by a demon in the third. The victim was a cow in one, an ox in another, but there was no companion in the third. And the act is treated as a sacrifice in one, but a murder in the other two. But what is strange, or really different between those myths, is that the victims' names bear no resemblance to each other. Ymir, Gaumart and Perusa don't seem to be linked. So whilst these myths are structurally similar in plot, are they actually related to each other in any other way? Can we prove that relationship? Well, here, understanding that the Old Norse version of the myth is as close to Proto-Indo-European source as we can ever hope to have, and the primordial being is called Ymir, which is an androgyny, which a creature that is neither man nor woman, but both, and that is derived from the Proto-Germanic Yumiyaz, which would have been derived from the Proto-Indo-European Yemios, a term that is directly related to twin, because he is both. The word also corresponds with Lettish, a Baltic language of Yumis, meaning double fruit, the Middle Irish Emuin, meaning twin, Latin Geminus, which also means twin, and the Avestan, the language spoken by those who followed Zoroastrianism, as Yema, meaning twin as well. And this matches the proper name in Avestan of Yema, which is Sanskrit Yama, and that signifies twin as well. Now, because of this phonological and semantic correlation, then it would be sensible to assume that all these names of those primordial beings are derived from the same character in the Proto-Indo-European myth. So Ymir should be the same as Gaumart. And the Iranian evidence supports this hypothesis, as behind the figure of Gaumart we may discover the older figure of Yima, and who we can show is directly related to Ymir from the Proto-Indo-European creation myth. Now, the way in which this transformation from Gaumart to Yima takes place is somewhat complex. First, we must recognise that in pre-Zoroastrianism Persia, Yima was not merely the king of a golden age, but he was the first mortal to die. And being the first thing to die links Yima to the original primordial being Yimo dying. There's that correlation in the myth. And the tradition of Yima was rejected by Zoroaster, who sadly condemns Yima in the only time that he mentions him within their book of worship, the Yasna, in section 32.8. And how we know that is there is actually a line that says in 32.8, among these sinners we know Yima was included. There is one verse, however, in which Zoroaster does make an oblique reference to the myth of creation by sacrifice, and that's in Yasna 34. And this says, and when the good and evil spirits first met, they instituted life and non-life, and how life should be at an end. Moreover, these two spirits are said to have appeared in the beginning as two twins, and uses the word Yama, and this is from Yasna 33. So these verses have been studied by academics who have recognised that Zoroaster has attempted to deal with an earlier myth of creation, which he found objectionable. He didn't want to put forward as his own, but which he can't completely ignore because it's probably inherent within the culture. So he philosophised the myth, changing its characters into abstract entities, but retaining the essential mythologem that the first living man died at the creation of the world. Now, ironically, however, a re-mytholization of Zoroaster's version took place in later centuries, and in the verse cited above, the Avestan term translated life is Gaia, which is the younger Avesta, is often combined with the term Malitan, which means mortal, to form the name given to the first mortal man. and he was created and died at the beginning of the world, and he was called Gaya Marten. Now this name comes into the Pahlavi or Middle Persian version of the Buddhism text as Gayamart. Thus the evolution from Yima to Gayamart is that the Middle Persian Gayamart comes from the younger Avstan Gaya Martan, which comes from the Gathic Avstan Gaya, which is from the pre-Zoroaster Yima, meaning twin. So linking the primordial being across those Persian myths and showing that Gayamart is in fact being evolved from Yimo in the original Proto-Indo-European creation myths, clearly shows that the same myth went west into Germania and Scandinavia and east into Persia and Iran and onto India, all from that single source. In the next video in the series, I'll provide a bit more evidence by specifying pieces of specific comparative mythology, maybe touching on gods and myths that are common throughout the descendants of Proto-Indo-European sources. So hopefully you found that by looking at those texts of the descendants of Proto-Indo-European religions and seeing those similarities, and I'll put references to those texts below so you can look at them yourselves, it helps you to understand that we do have substantial evidence to show this this descendancy and this genealogy of religion. And yes, if you want to ask any questions or leave any comments about what I have said, because the last part from Gayamart to Yimo is quite complex, but it will make sense if you actually listen to it a few times. We have enough evidence to make our theory stand up well to scrutiny. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have, please like and subscribe to the channel, it means a lot. And until the next video, stay safe, stay well, and this